Where's the Canon EOS R3 Mark II? We were told it was coming in 2025, but then Canon released the R1, leaving very little room for the R3 Mark II. Some would even say that there's really no point to an R3 Mark II, that it's dead. But a recent source has told us that it's coming. But the big question is, who is it for? Well, I'll answer this question in this video. But first, I have a simple and yet humble request. Please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps this channel grow, and it keeps you informed on the latest camera gear, such as the R3 Mark II. Canon announced the EOS R1 on July the 17th, 2024, doubling down on a purpose-built, fast-action sports fashion photography camera, delivering a high hit rate with low noise at high ISO. A contrast indeed to Nikon's Z9, which is capable of 45.7 pixels versus the R1's 24 megapixels. Since then, pro wildlife photographers such as Joshua Halku have said that the idea of an R3 successor is dead, while others are disappointed and angry that Canon has abandoned the idea of a high-resolution follow-up to the R1 and are instead looking to the Z9 as a better option. Later, Canon explained, "We consider the flagship to basically be the pinnacle of our lineup, which means we're not going to have two flagship models because we basically put everything that we have, the best performance and the best trust, into the EOS R1. So I would say that we would probably never consider developing another model using the same body as the EOS R1." And after reading that quote, many of us said, okay, the idea of Canon coming out with something like an R1X, a camera that's very similar to the Nikon Z9, it's got the best video, it's got the best stills, it's the best of both worlds, the idea of that camera is completely gone. And by parallel, we thought, well, the R3 has the same body as the R1 with some slight changes. The idea of any sort of Nikon Z9 like Canon EOS R1 or R3 Mark II was very quickly, well, poo-pooed. However, a source of this channel recently told us something very interesting. There will be a follow-up to the Canon EOS R3. I've seen the roadmap. Now, no timeline was given, but Canon Rumors has said that the R3 Mark II will appear in 2025. But that rumor is a little bit old. I think it might go back to 2023 or at least early 2024. The idea of a high-resolution R1 has been, well, shot down by Canon, which leaves us to, well, grasp at straws and suggest, well, maybe, just maybe, the Canon EOS R3 Mark II could take on that role. It's like the Nikon the Z7 Mark II. They haven't come out with a Z7 Mark III yet. And the conjecture was that if they repurposed that as a high-resolution camera, it would make sense. But still, almost a year later, we don't have a Z7 follow-up yet. And so now, on the Canon platform, many of us are thinking that, well, perhaps, just perhaps, Canon's going to repurpose the R3 to a high-resolution camera. And that's something that I speculated back in October of 2024. And that would appeal to many photographers like Scott. A high-resolution Canon RF camera has been teased going all the way back to 2018 and 2019. I agree with Josh. The R1 makes a, well, follow-up to the R3 Mark II in its current form as a 24 megapixel sensor, all but dead. But just imagine for a moment that the R3 Mark II does take on a similar role as the Nikon Z9, a high-resolution camera. The best of the best. What was that statement, that quote from Canon Rumors from a few years ago? A master of everything, a jack of all trades. But you see, while that in the R3 Mark II would not be constrained against the Canon EOS R1, it would indeed constrain the Canon EOS R5 Mark III. And that's important because the 5 series is Canon's top-selling camera. It's the camera with the highest margins. Why would you constrain the 5 series? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? And, well, Canon agrees with me. I believe our current strategy is to have the 5 series be responsible for the high resolution quality. So if you're looking for an awful lot of pixels, a lot of megapixels, well, it looks like Canon's pointing us to the 5 series. So if we are getting a high resolution camera, it sounds like Canon's saying, don't look for the R3 Mark II, look for it in the 5 series. And history here does play a role. A lot of people don't like history, but all we have to do is go back to the 5D series. We had what, the 5D RS or the SR? This camera did have some problems, but at the time, 50 megapixels was an awful lot. And here Canon is once again saying in late 2024 that, well, or was it early 2025 at CP+? I can't remember, but it's pretty recent. But they're saying that when it comes to high resolution, look to the 5 series. If you want low noise at high ISO, and you want that high hit rate, that high trust, well, then you're looking at the 1 series. I don't know. My source, who told me that the R3 Mark II is coming, that they've seen evidence, I'll tell you this. Now, this source, I've known this source for a long time, and the source hasn't gotten things right all the time. I don't know. Again, one thing I will say that in this game, that the closer we get to announcement, the more reliable the rumors can be, because what happens is if we're a year or two away from an actual announcement, what can happen is Canon can look at the roadmap and say, okay, based on this data, this real world data that's coming into us right now, this camera model doesn't make sense. And what we need to do is we need to switch gears. And that's what they did just recently with the EOS RV line, such as the 50V. The Canon 5D Mark V, that was real. It was canceled when they saw the success of the EOS R5. And the 7D Mark III, also canceled. We don't know why, but it was. Things can change. So for now, the R3 Mark II, it's real, it's hanging on there. But in terms of what form it will take, we have no idea. I mean, the 5 series is responsible for high resolution, and it's responsible for video. The R1, sports, fast action photography, high hit rate, low noise, high ISO, high trust. That leaves the R3. The R3 is more or less like a mini R1. It's almost like taking that R1, like Nikon did with the Z8. It's a mini Z9, and reducing some of the capability. So I'm just going to postulate something here. Let me know if you think I'm onto something here. We're going to take the R1, and we're going to put it inside the R3 body. And we're going to keep a single CF Express Type B card slot and a UHS 2 card slot. Now that's going to knock a couple of grand off the price of the camera. And what we're also going to do is maybe we're going to do some other things. We perhaps will keep the cross-type autofocus on the sensor, but we'll do some other things that, well, if you're a pro, first of all, you're not going to go with a single UHS 2, or sorry, a single CF Express Type B card slot, right? Sometimes I have trouble speaking. It's cold here, I'm old, and sometimes my mouth just doesn't work. Anyhow, not having dual card slots is going to turn a lot of people off. And even if you drop it by $2,000, you're not going to attract the pros like Joshua Halku. You think that $10,000 is a lot for a camera? Okay, so in US dollars, it's $6,500. But you think that's a lot for a camera, tack on the lens, and who knows where you're up to. But to go to shoot in the Arctic or the Antarctic, do you have any idea how much that costs? A lot of times, actually getting to the location can cost as much or more than the actual gear. So I think an R3 Mark II basically having the same capabilities as the R1, but with a single CF Express Type B card slot, will make a huge difference. And there'll be some other minor differences, maybe in codecs, maybe in terms of refresh rates, or in terms of the continuous shooting speed. And I think what that would do is make something like the R1 a bit more approachable to people who can deal with just having a single card slot or working with a UHS 2 card slot as its backup. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Now, could they raise the resolution just a little bit? Sure, to 26, 30, or even 32 megapixels. I think if they do increase the resolution, it's not going to be a high resolution camera. I think it might just be a little bit of a bump. And maybe that bump could be a test to see, well, how well it performs. Because 30 megapixels isn't that far off of 24 megapixels on a full frame sensor, if they're able to make improvements into the sensor technology itself. Remember, it's that noise floor that makes the difference. For each photosite, you have a well that's able to collect electrons, or that are converted into photons. Anyway, you've got this electron well. And the problem is, now, when you fill that all the way up, you're also obviously going to clip, and you can't hold any more information, so you need to make the well deeper. And that's where we have problems in the shadows. Now, stacked sensors really help with that. But if they can somehow make further improvements, well, that would be huge. And could they also trial out a global shutter sensor? Yeah. Now, that would certainly have people who have the R1 going, ooh, well, a little bit. Now, it depends on dynamic range, right? That's why Canon has avoided a global shutter sensor for a very long time. Now, they've been working on that technology. We have patents going back about 8 to 9 years. I would think that if they were going to release a global shutter sensor, it would be on the 1 series first. But rethinking the R3 with a global shutter sensor, well, that's what Sony did with the A9 III. Interesting, right? Well, if you are interested in the R3 Mark II but are not willing to wait, then you might want to consider the R3 that's currently on sale right now for $39.99. We also have the R5 Mark II on sale for the same price, $39.99, and of course the Mark I is $29.99. And I have the links to both of these camera models in the description down below for both B&H, Adorama, as well as Amazon.com, these guys right here. However, there's an awful lot on sale right now. We're seeing tons of camera deals, not just in Canada, the United States, but around the world. The links I have down below are for Adorama and B&H. We're seeing, up to $600 off. The Nikon Z8 was recently $600 off. It's now $300 off. But as we move into a new week, we might see that price change again. What you might want to do with a lot of uncertainty that's going on right now, tap into some of these deals because they're really good. And as we are getting into spring, well, if you can pick up a new lens or a new camera body to get you out there in doing wildlife photography, take a closer look. We might not be seeing deals like this for, well, a while now. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, one other thing I should tell you, if you do use these links, I get a small commission back of anywhere from 2 to 5%, which helps keeps the lights on. I'm not laughing at that. I'm just laughing at the amount of trouble I've had enunciating my words this morning. I'm cold, and when I'm cold, I just have trouble kind of moving the muscles that control speech. But I think also as I'm getting older, I slur my words a little bit more. And the one thing this channel is forcing me to do is to recognize that and to enunciate more clearly. And what I would normally do is take multiple takes, but you know what? It's Sunday morning at the time that I'm recording this, and I'm more relaxed on the weekend because I don't have my day job, and I'm not striving for perfection. I'm just trying to have fun. Because to keep doing this channel year after year as a full-time job on top of my other full-time job, I have to enjoy it. I admire people like Casey of Camera Conspiracies who can joke around and do all that, and I would like to get to the point where I can do that. I think having a daytime job where I'm, well, Mr. Serious Pants most of the times, I think it carries over into this channel as well. So anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in. I wouldn't be surprised if this video shakes the rumor tree a little bit. Hopefully we'll find out a little bit more soon. But what I'm really keenly interested on for 2025 is a refresh of the R7 and the R6. And you might say, well, what about Sony? Well, I get a sense from Sony that their stuff is getting delayed and pushed into Q1 of 2026. And Nikon? Well, October. Yeah, October. Z9 Mark II. I'm not going to go into the details there. I've already published several videos on the Nikon Z9 Mark II about specifications and when we can expect to see that camera and price points. So until I get more new information, hang tight. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.